You left my daughter like trash. Now you'll pay. It was a quiet morning. Coffee cooling beside me, contracts scattered across my desk until my phone rang. Ava's name lit up the screen. My daughter, my world. I expected her giggle. I got a whisper soaked in fear. Dad, help me. They left me. Took the baby. I'm alone. My heart stopped. Chair screeched. Coffee spilled. None of it mattered. Where are you? I demanded. The park, near Mom's house. Please come. I was already out the door before the call ended. Then I dialed her. Laura, the woman I once trusted with Ava's life. She picked up, laughing. You left our daughter alone in a park? I asked, voice ice. Oh, that? We forgot her, she said, laughing. Greg, her new man, was laughing too. Forgot her. She's 7, Laura. Oh, calm down, she scoffed. It was a joke. She'll be fine. A joke. Like she left behind a jacket. Not a child, not a soul. They didn't know it yet, but they'd just started a war. I drove like the devil. Was chasing me. When I got there, Ava was curled on a bench, knees hugged tight, eyes red and swollen. An older couple hovered nearby, concern etched into their faces. She saw me and ran. Daddy, she sobbed, clinging to me like I was air. I've got you, baby, I whispered, barely holding back the fire. Later in the car, she showed me a recording. Laura's voice, laughing. Let's all leave while she's in the restroom. Hilarious, Greg chimed in. Let's see how long until she cries. Laura's mom. Oh, Laura, you're terrible. They planned it. They wanted her to panic. They wanted her to cry. They wanted her to feel abandoned. That wasn't neglect. That was cruelty, intentional, and now documented. I fed Ava her favorite snack, brushed her hair, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Then I sat alone, listening to that recording, over and over. This wasn't about custody anymore. This wasn't about divorce. This was war. I picked up my phone and called her one last time. She cried herself to sleep. I said, voice flat, 7 years old, alone, forgotten. Oh, come on, Laura said. She's fine. You're being dramatic. I smiled. You're going to regret everything, I said quietly. Not a threat, a promise. I don't know. What you think you've done? You will, I said, and hung up before she could respond. I sat there breathing hard, trying to steady the storm inside me. Laura's laugh still echoed in my ears. I could see Greg beside her, amused by a frightened little girl. They thought this was harmless, that it would blow over, that there'd be no fallout. They were wrong. The next morning, Ava was quiet at breakfast. She pushed her cereal around, eyes fixed on the bowl. She hadn't said a word about what happened, but the weight of it was all over her. Sweetheart, I said softly, sitting across from her. You know what they did wasn't okay, right? She gave a small nod, but kept her eyes down. I guess I wasn't important enough for them to remember. Her words cracked something inside me. Hey, I said, reaching across the table and taking her hand. You are the most important person in my life. Always. What they did says everything about them, and nothing about you. This wasn't your fault. She finally looked up, eyes searching mine. Are you mad at me? Never. I shook my head. I'm mad at them, and I promise I won't let this happen again. She studied me for a second, then gave a small nod. Okay, Daddy. That was all I needed. I dropped her off at school and went straight to my lawyer's office. Full custody, I said to Marcus, sliding Ava's iPad across the desk and hitting play. The room filled with Laura's voice, Greg's mocking tone, laughter, every second of cruelty, clear and undeniable. When the recording ended, Marcus let out a slow breath. Jesus, she actually planned this? She did, I said, jaw tight. And I'm making sure she never gets the chance to do it again. We'll file for emergency custody first, Marcus said, grabbing a legal pad. It'll be a fight, but with this evidence, we've got a real shot. Do it, I said without hesitation. He looked at me. You know she's going to retaliate. This is going to get ugly. I don't care, I said. Ava comes first, always. That night, Laura called. Then Greg, then Laura again. I let them all go to voicemail. I already knew the game. Pretend it was nothing, play it down, scare me into backing off. Too late. I looked at Ava, curled beside me on the couch, finally sleeping peacefully again. I ran a hand over her curls and kissed the top of her head. They thought they were playing a game. This time, they're playing. Against someone who's not going to lose. Sunday came fast. I'd spent the last 2 days working with Marcus, filing everything, pulling in Ava's school counselor to document her distress. Every move calculated. At 3 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Laura stood there with her arms crossed, irritation in, her eyes instead of guilt. Greg looked smug. Behind them, Laura's parents hovered stiffly, unreadable. I let them in. They walked in like this was beneath them, like they weren't the ones who'd done something wrong. Laura sat down, already annoyed. Let's get this over with. You think this is just a casual conversation? I asked, calm but cold. Oh my God, are you still on this? We said, sorry. No, you didn't, I cut in. Greg smirked. You're really blowing this out of proportion. She's fine. She's at school, right? Alive and well. You left a 7-year-old alone in a park, on purpose, and laughed about it. Laura's mother scoffed. It was a misunderstanding. Children need to toughen up. Ava's too sensitive. I exhaled, slow. Still don't get it. I pressed play on the iPad. The room filled with their own laughter, their voices, their cruelty. I didn't stop it. Not 1 second. I let them sit with it. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Who recorded that? Laura hissed. Otava did, I said, because she knew it wasn't right. A 7-year-old showed more awareness than the 4 adults who left her behind. Laura's fists clenched. You had no right. I had every right, I said, calm, but firm. You don't get to abandon my daughter and walk away without consequences. Greg leaned in. You think a court's going to take full custody over one incident? I cut him off. You encouraged it. You laughed. Let's see if you're still laughing once this hits court. What do you want? Laura's father asked. Simple. Effective immediately. I'm filing for full custody. Ava doesn't step foot in your house again. None of you see her unless the court allows it. And after hearing that recording, they won't. You can't do that, Laura said. Watch me. Her mother gasped. You're taking a child from her mother over a prank? That wasn't a prank, I said. A prank is harmless. This was deliberate cruelty. This was neglect. I'm her mother, Laura cried. You were supposed to be, I replied, but you made your choice. You chose Greg. You chose your new family. Ava deserves better, Greg scoffed. You're being dramatic, I smirked. You'll see how dramatic this gets. Laura's father stood. You're ruining her life over this. I stood too. She did that herself. They turned to leave. One more thing, I said as they reached the door. You might want to warn Greg's clients. Child neglect doesn't play well in public. Greg's face darkened. You wouldn't. I already did. Laura let out a strangled sound. You're going to regret this? No, I said. You are. They stormed out. I closed the door behind them. The room was quiet, but my pulse was still thudding in my ears. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and watched them get into the car. Laura was ranting. Greg looked furious. Her parents were stiff, with discomfort. Let them panic. They chose this. I turned back to the living room. Ava's backpack sat on the couch, the only thing that mattered. A knock pulled me from my thoughts. I opened the door. Marcus, you're fast. He dropped his briefcase on the table, flipping it open. I filed everything. Emergency custody, neglect complaint, sole custody petition. The judge already set a hearing for next week. I let out a breath. That fast? With that recording? He said. The system moves quicker when a mother's on tape laughing about child abandonment. I sat down. So what now? She'll spin it. Say you're vindictive, say it's out of context. But this recording? It's a losing battle. Unless she's smart enough to back down. She's not. He nodded. Which means she'll go nuclear. He slid another paper across the table. I think you should post the recording. I raised an eyebrow. You're my lawyer. Normally I'd say don't, but public pressure works. If the court of public opinion turns on her, it'll help your case. I hesitated. Then I heard Ava's voice in my head. I guess I wasn't important enough for them to remember. No. They needed to be exposed. I pulled out my phone, typed, "My ex-wife and her husband left my 7-year-old daughter alone in a public park, on purpose. They laughed about it, thought it was funny. Listen for yourself." I attached the recording. Hit post. Marcus smirked. Now we watch the fireworks. And we did. Within hours, it exploded. Outrage. Disbelief. Parents everywhere calling it what it was. Cruelty. The next morning, it was all over the news. Laura tried to push back, claimed it was taken out of context, that I was twisting it. But the world had heard the truth. And this time, no one was laughing. The room was cold, air-conditioned, clinical, but the tension made it feel colder. I sat still, fingers interlocked, pulse heavy. Beside me, Marcus flipped through a binder of documents, calm and efficient. Across from us sat Laura, pale, defiant. Greg wasn't there. He'd jumped ship. The judge entered, tall, gray-haired, no nonsense. He surveyed the courtroom as the bailiff called the case. "Miss Carter," he began, "I see you are contesting Mr. Reynolds' petition for sole custody. But before we proceed, I need an explanation." Laura stood. Her hands trembled slightly. "Your Honor, yes, there was an incident, but it's been completely blown out of proportion. My ex-husband is using one mistake to take my daughter away." Marcus sighed beside me. "Here we go. And your version of events?" the judge asked. Laura forced a smile. "It was a prank. Harmless fun." The judge raised an eyebrow. "So you thought it was funny to abandon a 7-year-old in a public park?" Faltered. "Well, when you say it like that, how should I say it?" The judge snapped. Silence. She had nothing. Marcus stood. "Your Honor, with permission, Exhibit A." He walked to the table, placed Ava's iPad, and pressed play. Laura's voice. Greg's voice. Her mother's voice, laughing, dismissing Ava like she didn't matter. The room was silent when the recording ended. Laura's face had gone white. The eye. Judge leaned in. "So, Miss Carter, still believe this was harmless?" "No," she whispered. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Reynolds?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have more. Written statements from Ava's counselor, a psychologist's evaluation, and witness testimony from the couple who found her." Marcus handed over the files. The judge reviewed them, nodding grimly. "This is damning, Miss Carter. Your actions show a disturbing lack of judgment." "I love my daughter," Laura said weakly. "You have a strange way of showing it," he replied. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she said, voice cracking. "But you did," I said, finally speaking. "And you laughed." Laura had no response. The judge exhaled. "This court takes child neglect very seriously. I see no reason why Ava should remain in your custody." Laura gasped. "Wait, effective immediately," the judge continued. "Full custody is granted to Mr. Reynolds. Miss Carter, You will have no visitation until you complete a psychological evaluation and parenting courses. You may reapply for supervised visitation afterward. Laura staggered back. No, you can't do this. This isn't punishment, Miss Carter. It's consequence. She began to cry. I felt nothing. No pity, no regret. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. Greg was gone. Her parents sat stunned, and Ava was safe. That was all that mattered. The gavel fell. It was over. Later, as the courtroom cleared, Laura turned to me. You really did it, she whispered. You took her away. I stood. No, Laura. You threw her away. She looked shattered. For the first time, she understood. At Ava's school, I found her on the swings. She ran into my arms the second she saw me. Hey, sweetheart, I whispered into her hair. She pulled back. What? I smiled. You never have to go back to Mom's house again. Her eyes widened. Ever? Ever. She stared for a beat, then wrapped her arms around my neck and squeezed tight. Thank you, Daddy. You never have to thank me for keeping you safe, baby. We stayed like that a long time, just holding on. The following days were still. No calls, no texts, no drama, just peace. Ava and I built our new life. Pancake mornings, after-school laughs, bedtime stories, safety. She slept without fear now, and I finally breathed again. One night, she looked up at me from the couch. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Do you think Mom misses me? I paused. She wasn't sad, just curious. I think she misses the idea of you, I said gently. But not in the way she should. Ava nodded once, then leaned against me again. We said nothing. Else, we didn't have to. We were home, and we were free. It started one afternoon, the kind of moment that shatters your world. I had just finished a meeting when my phone buzzed. Ava's school. My stomach dropped. I answered immediately. Mr. Reynolds? The principal's voice was calm, but I could hear the tension. We need you here. Your ex-wife showed up at the school. Unannounced. She demanded to see Ava. I went cold. What happened? She caused a scene. We had to escort her out. Just thought you should know. I don't remember driving to the school. One second I was at my desk. The next, I was storming through the front doors, heart pounding. The principal was waiting. His expression was grave. Ava's fine, he assured me. She's been in class the entire time. But I recommend you talk to her tonight, just in case. I nodded, jaw tight. I knew this wasn't over. Laura wasn't going to quietly fade into the background. Not after everything. She had tried to ambush my daughter. At school, I signed Ava out and drove her home, forcing myself to stay calm. She hummed along to the radio, blissfully unaware. But I knew I had to talk to her. I had to make sure she felt safe. That night, after dinner, I tucked Ava into bed and sat beside her. Sweetheart, I said, brushing a stray curl from her face. We need to talk. She blinked up at me, clutching her stuffed bear. It's okay, Daddy. I took a deep breath. Your mom came to your school today. Her little face scrunched up. She did? She did, I confirmed. But the school wouldn't let her see you. They made her leave. She was quiet, her thoughts turning over the information. Why did she come? I paused, carefully choosing my words. She doesn't like that she lost custody. She's upset, but she can't do anything about it. The court made sure of that. Ava hugged her bear tighter. Is she going to try to take me? The fear in her voice nearly broke me. No, I said firmly. She can't, and I'll never let anything happen to you. She searched my face, looking for the truth. After a long moment, she nodded. I kissed her forehead. You're safe, sweetheart. Always. She smiled, then turned onto her side and closed her eyes. But I stayed watching her, my heart heavy. Laura wasn't done yet, but I was. I stood, grabbed my phone, and walked into the hallway. I called Marcus. I was wondering when you'd call, he said after a beat. Laura showed up at Ava's school today, I said, my voice low. There was a pause. All right, we'll make sure this never happens again. The fight wasn't over, but this time I was prepared. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Laura, unannounced, manipulating, trying to claw her way back into Ava's life. She wasn't going to stop. I knew that now. She would push every boundary, try every tactic to get what she wanted. But she wouldn't win. At dawn, I was already up, coffee in hand, phone pressed to my ear. "Morning," Marcus said groggily. "I'm not calling for small talk," I cut in. "Laura showed up at the school." "Yeah," he sighed. "I figured. She's desperate. We need to make sure she doesn't try it again." "I'll file for a restraining order today," he said. "Given the ruling, it'll be straightforward." I gritted my teeth. "Let her try. She'll lose." By the afternoon, Marcus confirmed the restraining order was filed. Laura would be served within 24 hours. She wouldn't like it, but it wasn't my problem anymore. When I picked Ava up from school, she was as cheerful as ever, talking about her day. "Guess what, Daddy?" "What?" "We're learning about space, and I told my teacher I want to be an astronaut when I grow up." I smiled. "That's amazing, sweetheart. Do you think you can do it?" She beamed up at me. "Do you think I can?" "You can do anything you set your mind to." In that moment, something shifted. This was it. She was what mattered, not Laura, not the drama, just Ava, her dreams, her future. That night, as I tucked her in, Ava turned to me, a small frown on her face. "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart." "Do you think Mom's mad at me?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I kept my voice gentle. "Why do you think that?" She shrugged, picking at the blanket. "She doesn't call anymore." I sighed. "Sweetheart, your mom isn't mad at you. But sometimes people make bad choices, and they have to live with the consequences." She was quiet, then whispered, "Do you think she's sad?" I thought about it. "Maybe, but not for the right reasons." Ava bit her lip. "I just don't want anyone to be sad." My heart squeezed. Even after everything, she still had the kindest heart. I kissed her forehead. "You just focus on being happy. That's all that matters." She smiled, snuggling into her pillow. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, Ava." I turned off the lamp and stepped into the hallway. Ava was safe. She was healing. And no matter what Laura did next, I'd always protect her. Because that's what real parents do. They don't abandon their children. They fight for them. And I would fight for Ava every single day. Forever.